Hello, my dear friends. Thank you for being back. I'm going to be direct. My goal today is that by the end of this TED Talk, when you come home, at least half of you will kickstart your personal branding journey through the art of storytelling. The reason I'm so passionate about motivating you to take action is because I myself have experienced the journey, and I'm a firm believer that stories can change lives. It has changed my life completely. So, to make this sound more like a TED Talk, I've looked up some data, and here's what I found. All right, numbers. 92% of consumers believe they would shop from someone they feel connected to rather than a faceless brand. Next, 64% of consumers say that the quality of a story influences their choice whether they should support a brand or a public figure. And last but not least, this one I found on LinkedIn. 85% of job applicants would be willing to accept a lower salary if the employer had a good employer brand. Interesting for me personally. So, these all indicate one fact, that personal stories can help you attract opportunities. Consider famous entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. Their brand story isn't just about their products or services. It's also about their dreams, their passions, the achievements, and also the challenges they faced. So, whether you're facing challenges with building your personal brand, or you're uncertain about how to start with your next business brand story, or you're struggling with limited financial resources and connections, this talk is devoted to you. It all starts with a story. All right, Claire, I know that storytelling is important. I know that I need to start my personal branding journey. But how do I do that? Well, after a long period of trial and error, I've come to the conclusion that it's not about the tactics. It's about the right mindset. And oftentimes, right thinking leads to right doing. So, today, we're going to look at the 3 main misconceptions that are preventing you from taking your first step or sticking to your branding journey. The first one, and also the most common one, it is, I have no story to tell. How many of you here are thinking so? Can you raise your hand, please? Although I can't see you because of the light. All right, thank you. This is a very common thought. I used to think so too. But this is where the concept of a life story comes into play. Your life story is not a one-time narrative. It's a lifelong journey. So, you gotta think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. You gotta find the elixir in the everyday stories and turn it into a masterpiece. So I have prepared an exercise, and I guarantee that after I walk you through this exercise, it only takes you 5 minutes. You will never run out of stories to tell again. All right, so can my supporters help me to turn on the light? Can we turn on the light? All right. So, this exercise is called the life chart. You can see on your hands we have a piece of paper with a pen, and we have several columns. The years, the grades in your school, your age, the score, and an event. Right? So, starting from the year when you were born, you will look back at your childhood or your past and remember a highlight event for that specific year. Don't worry if you can't remember any events for the years when you were too young. We'll skip that years. Then we will move on to the next part. Yeah, after almost finishing this exercise, I don't think that you feel like you have no stories to tell. Your life is quite dramatic, isn't it? If you combined all these little events into a movie, you might not win an Oscar, but maybe you will have a good story to tell. And that story can be told on your next interview, your next TED Talk, or your next first date. So this is exactly what I did to tell my own story. I draw a life chart, and then I turn it into a short video. And this video was my first video to hit over 1 million views on TikTok. So, this is how the story goes. This year, I'm 25 years old. My family is not very well off, but my parents always try their best to invest in our education. But with that background, I was always under the impression that I need to be financially independent from early on. From the age of 15, I tried a few jobs already, from English tutoring to selling online clothing, but those things didn't turn out very well. Until the age of 17, I tried doing makeup, and I love it. That opened a new chapter in my life. I got to do something that I enjoyed. I met new people from all walks of life, and more importantly, I had money to make ends meet. Gradually, I got to do makeup on celebrities and clients of the upper and also the middle classes. And it seemed like too good to be true. After 4 years in the makeup industry, I reached an average income of around $1,000 to $2,000 per month, with some months peaking at $4,000, which was a lot for me at that moment as a university student. But there was a trade-off. Overworking took a toll on my sleep, my mental health, my physical health, my relationships, and also my personal growth. I experienced severe stress, and to the point that I got to see the therapist, and I was diagnosed with depression. I got tired every time I got to work because of the demanding working hours. Usually I had to wake up at like 2 to 3 to 4 a.m. in the morning to do bridal makeups. But suddenly, COVID hit. Then I became unemployed. I depleted my emergency fund after 2 years of on and off shutdowns. And at that time, I knew that it's time for me to change. I had to make a change and shifted my direction. I looked back at my abilities to see what is a thing that I can monetize. Then I found English. I decided to return to English, and I was lucky enough to score an 8 in IELTS. But still, after that time, I was still clueless about what I was going to do with that certificate. I sat on the fence about whether I should become a bilingual MC or a translator or a teacher for such a long time. And I did nothing because of the paradox of choice. But during that time, I did one thing. That was sharing my story on social media. I share about how I learned English as a makeup artist. I share my learning materials, my learning tips, my methods. And then, gradually, I become recognized as a lifestyle or educator blogger more than a makeup artist. And after 6 months of being clueless and also jobless, I made another decision that changed my life for the second time. I remember that was the 19th of September, 2021. I made a post on Instagram to officially announce my first IELTS course. And 7 days after that, I was 24/7 on the phone, replying to hundreds of messages asking about my IELTS courses. I was in shock. And 3 months after that, I made my first billion, in Vietnam Đồng, of course. Online newspaper reached out to me, like Cafe Ave, Dân Trí, Kênh 14. They asked me to share my story. And when people heard about my story, they thought that it was an overnight success. Some people even thought that I was lying to get attention, but I wasn't. That 1 billion was not the result of 3 months of launching my IELTS course. It was the result of years of doing makeup, building reputation and connections online. So, after 1 year, I set up my new office in Hanoi, and built a team of over 20 people. After 2 years, we had a team of over 30 friends. And on this journey, I continued to learn, to make mistakes, and enjoyed it. So that's my story. It took you only 5 minutes to hear my story, but it took me 10 years to tell such a story. So, the key here is you got to be patient and consistent enough for the compound effect to show its results. Be consistent. That's how you overcome the fear of I have no story to tell. All right, so here comes the second myth. But my story is irrelevant and uninteresting. Well, what about mine? My story is more irrelevant and uninteresting than anything you're thinking of, right? To the point that I used to feel so ashamed of my background as a makeup artist. I remembered when I first launched my IELTS course, I'd deleted all of my makeup photos on Instagram. That was around 400 to 500 photos for 4 to 5 years, because I didn't feel like I fit into the stereotype of a teacher. I didn't have a lot of experience in teaching. My experience was doing faces. But, interestingly, it turned out that 20% of my first students were actually my makeup clients before. And what's more interesting? The rest 80%, they knew me about my story. They were inspired by my journey or resonated with one story I told in the past. Then they become a follower and then a client. So, if there was one thing I wish I knew earlier, that was try to be as authentic as you can. What makes you unique is that your story is different from anyone else's. And one more point that you should be authentic is that it is a lifelong journey. Remember, you cannot put on a face or try to be someone else for such a long time. So, be authentic. Be proud of your past. That's how you can be eager and excited about your future. And the last, and also the thing that people don't talk about so much, is that the fear that you're a nobody. I'm a nobody with no significant talents. Why should people care about me? Well, if you think so, maybe you're right. You and I will all start off as nobodies. But it is our choice, our action, and our daily habits that determine whether we can become somebodies. And nobody cares about you? Sure. Because at the end of the day, people only care about themselves, right? You do not build a personal brand by showing off your new Chanel bag or checking in 30 different countries around the world, or even posting a cute pic in a new coffee shop near Westlake. You don't. You build a personal brand by sharing something you learn, something valuable, or guiding people to be better at something that you have some expertise in. For example, if you are good at a foreign language, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean, which I believe a lot of you here are, share it. Share how you got the learning materials. Share your stories. Share about your cool teachers that you learned from. Or if you are a fitness enthusiast, share about how you do a meal prep, how to lose weight, how to gain weight, or which type of exercise fit different types of physiques. But if you have yet to master any skill yet, then come back to our first exercise, the life chart, remember? Pick an event, tell a story, and draw a lesson from it. Try to be as valuable as you can. But remember, you do not have to arrive at a specific destination to have the authority to talk about your journey. Waiting until I'm good enough is a forever excuse that will cost you a lot of opportunities. So, be real. And oftentimes, people resonate with failure more than a tale of constant success. It is in our downtime, in our vulnerable moments, that we connect with people on a deeper level. But if you do want to share about your unexpected experience, there's one thing you should keep in mind. Focus on the things you learn, the value, rather than sharing your audience with negative feelings. And one cool thing I like about this obsession of value is it's a motivation for me to be better every day, to learn something new, and to be more vocal about the things that I think. So, the last point, be valuable. Then, all in all, we can recap with this powerful triangle with the 3 pillars of successful storytelling. Being consistent, being authentic, and being valuable. So now that you have the tool and the recipe, I want you to bring home this. You are the author of your own book. You're also the narrator of your own life. So whether your story is worth $1, $1 million, or even $1 billion, it's entirely up to you. So there's no reason for you not to start from today. Because great stories only happen to those who can tell them. And that's an idea worth sharing. Thank you.